Hello, my friends. Welcome to me, your host, Christian Watson. So I was on Twitter today and I saw something trending that was quite concerning to me, especially since it is Black History Month, and I made a video about that if you want to go see that. If you look at this channel, you'll see the video. White privilege. White privilege was trending. And this idea of white privilege is an idea that I have been examining and analyzing since I was about 14, 15 years old. And in fact, my first real debate about white privilege was amongst a bunch of classmates in high school when I was 14 years old, a freshman in high school, and I was in my speech class, and the discussion came up of, do I think white people have more advantages than black people? And of course, I just said, of course, no, I don't. I think that it's overstated. And I hold that same position today, although I can defend it better. Back then, it was just me, 14-year-old me, with little knowledge that I had, trying to defend a proposition that was not only incredibly unorthodox, is incredibly despised upon by the intelligentsia, the pretentious intelligentsia in certain circles. But it was trending, and people were talking about how white privilege exists and how certain people in society have it, and how we need to fight it and everything. And I was just thinking to myself, this idea is becoming incredibly cartoonish. It's becoming incredibly cartoonish because it is presuming a quality, a fate upon certain individuals simply because of their complexion. So it is being fatalistic towards certain individuals simply because of how they look. Because it presumes that society will act as this conduit for that individual because of how they look. It'll be a conduit for their success and their ease. Which is what this is saying. Unearned advantage based on race, which can be observed both systemically and individually. So let's understand where the idea of white privilege comes from. Because when we understand its origins and its genesis, we can just really see how irrational this notion, this academic construct of reverse racism truly is. So it has this idea, number one, of society. For white privilege to exist, for the argument to be made, one has to accept that society is a mass organism that can be measured and move towards certain conclusions or certain aims due to certain things. That society is a interconnected organism that is continuous, and everything that happens in society affects people or has an impact on a lot of people at multiple levels of society. So I reject this idea of society. Society is not an organism. Society is not a mass organism. As Rosewater Lane said in Discovery of Freedom, society is not like a beehive, because bees have a single quality in their head, right? They are not worrying about consciousness, they're not worrying about contemplating things, they're not worried about philosophy. The bees are simply worried about making sure the hive is okay, making sure their queen is okay. That is the instinct that is ingrained into their DNA. Human beings are not bees. We have a higher consciousness than any other animal, as Aristotle noted in his various works on this planet. So from a philosophical viewpoint, and this is beyond the idea of white privilege, this is what general sociologists think of society. From a philosophical viewpoint, society cannot be a massive organism. Society can only be the micro interactions between me and other people and you and other people that somehow, some way have an effect on the broader scheme and manifest like vapors up to the atmosphere and spread out. The vapors of our micro interactions is what creates an appearance of a broad society. But there is no broad society. Even beyond my sort of a priori reasoning of this, let's look at this empirically. The societies in the Midwest do not feel the same thing that the societies in the Southeast or in the Northeast of the United States feel. Society is not this universal thing. This is society. When I interact with you in the comments, that is society. So from a philosophical level, white privilege is not tenable because it has a false conception of what society is. But let's continue. Let's presume that society is this massive organism that is in one body, that is in one form, and that has continuous and equal effects going every which way across its annals. Let's assume that. It endeavors in a statistical fallacy by assuming that certain disparities between certain races exist because of the race. The only thing racial disparities tell you is that a sociologist decided to measure disparities between certain groups and use their race as one of the prime variables. Racial disparities primarily are explained by race because it is measured racially. But many economists, sociologists will tell you in their studies, hey, there could be other factors going on here other than systemic racism. But a lot of studies are taken to prove the lie of broad, wide-ranging systemic racism. So, people will oftentimes point to the wealth gap between black individuals and white individuals, but they don't take into account anything else other than their race. They'll take into account segregation and slavery and everything, but they'll pretend as if those things, that history exists on a line, and that those things are continuing and piling over, because they have to be, right? Because it hasn't been that long. There are people who have been living who saw those things. Well, yeah, there are people who are living right now who saw the horrors of Nazi Germany, but Germany is a far different country than it was in 1940. Just because an experience is close to us chronologically does not mean the experience is continuing manifestly. So, there are 3 problems with white privilege, as I mentioned. The philosophical problem in how it understands society, the statistical problem in how it measures stats, and the chronological problem in how it measures the injustices of years past. It is for these reasons and more, my friends, that I assert that white privilege is simply an irrational construct birthed from the monster, from the belly of the beast of critical race theory, which will do nothing but continue to obfuscate the race conversation in America around these very narrow and subjective terms, and they will continue to reduce individuals to nothing more than their arbitrary complexions, a feat so far only carried out in society by the most wicked amongst us who had institutional power under Jim Crow, that is preparing to be carried out again by the supposedly most benevolent amongst us who constitute academia and so many think tanks which propose to be for the advancement of African Americans and quote-unquote marginalized communities. Think on it. As always, my friends, I love you, and please stay pensive. Hey guys, if you enjoy this message, please be sure to support my channel through PayPal. My PayPal is @officialcwatson, as you see on the screen. Any amount helps. Thank you so much, and stay pensive.